this week we have rearranged Graham's cage. We've gone for a little bit of a zhuzh. We've fixed the feng shui and we've put her wheel onto this side. She's been getting a bit porky recently. She runs on it on the back. I think it might be because it's been on there for long enough and like the metal bars have started to like wane under a weight more. When she runs on it, it like judders because it's like there's a lot of friction on the back because it's rubbing. But now it's on this side, she's got like a lot more running space, she's running there a lot more. We've like moved it stuff, like to do that we've had to put the cheese here, we've got the water still in that place so she doesn't get confused and die of thirst. We've got a bed down there, we've got a little sand pit there. She's living the dream, she's loving it, look at her. Having an absolute party. We've had a spruce up as well today, we've had a bit of a session of cleaning stuff. We've kind of got in the habit of just littering things about the place, I mean, arguably. Which we're trying to get away from. So we had like a bit of a spruce up and clean around this morning. I've been doing some programming, Laura's been doing some stuff for work and I've been helping her with that as well. So it's been kind of a day in the house doing stuff. We actually haven't left the house today, it's been great. I have been doing my sign up page on my webpage, which is pretty good. I've got all of the stuff that I need and I've now just got to add in some validation onto the view model and then pump it into a back-end process, which is what I'm going to be doing so that I can activate an account and then you come through and log on to a page where you confirm some details and then go, ha, happy birthday, here's your deets. I'm pretty happy about that, ladies and gentlemen. It's going well. I'm having problems with just, in general, nougat package issues, which are such a pain in the fucking arse, because it's like, I'm trying to run a test, trying to run the unit test, it's trying to reference the project, and it's like, I can't load the assembly. Well, what do you mean you can't? Like, it's fine, but at runtime it can't load the assembly, because there's like a nougat package mix-up. It's pissing me off. But yeah, I've got that, and I've got like a little recapture thing. It's so easy to put a capture thing on my job. It's really cool, so I'm pretty happy. Genuinely don't think I can overstate how excited I am for new .NET Core and .NET Standard 2.0, when nougat packages just get managed. When this like different versioning thing doesn't just stop a runtime error, it just uses the correct nougat package. Cannot wait. It's gonna be bliss. It's on the alarm going off again. The alarm on this road is probably like my most frequent guest on this vlog. Looks like we're okay. Weird. I think in fairness, I'd be very surprised if anyone lived in any of these. I think they're all offices. It's still bloody ridiculous. Anyway, we are starting off this week on a full sprint. We're hitting the ground running, ladies and gentlemen. We're starting off with a much better attitude than we did last week. I think last week I managed to get engrossed in work and I just kind of lost productivity. And this week, that's not happening, boy. Got a busy couple of days. I'm doing stuff tomorrow, maybe doing something on Wednesday, and we're obviously doing stuff tonight and whatnot. We're busy. We're getting work done. We're making progress. It's going to be great. Classic. I couldn't make a sandwich at home, so let's buy a giant Cornish pasty. I actually tried to go to this really nice looking cafe thing, but they only seem to have cakes. So cakes and a couple of sandwiches, but I normally have sandwiches, so I backtracked, went down a little bit, picked myself up a Cornish pasty, and I'm heading to my normal spot. You know what I said about not wanting to bring work home with me? I wonder if there's a way to use the same validation rules in two different places on two different objects that are different but the same. The domain model in a microservice off in the back end and the view model on the presentation layer. And if that was possible, how do you make the back end still the one that's responsible? She was like, she kind of sat on us, she was clearly asleep and she'd just gone, what the fuck? When she was sat there, she was like, I'm just a big little ball. Bless her. I haven't really thought more about that validation error issue since I spoke to you about it. But yeah, the problem we have basically is that we're validating the domain model object because that's the thing that needs to be valid, that's the thing that gets submitted essentially. But between that and the presentation layer, which is what the user sees, there's like 4 different types of mappings. It goes from the domain layer to the DTO, from the DTO to the DTO, I guess. Then it goes to the view model. The view model is then what gets displayed to the user. If there's an error message on something back in the domain model, how do you correlate that with something that's on the front end, even if there is literally 3 microservices in between you and that? How do you do that? Or do you just duplicate validation? Is there a way of duplicating the validation? That object's similar, the view model's similar, but it's not close, it's not accurate, it's not the same. It's a ball ache. They want us to display error messages. And so far that's been fine because it's all been driven by the JavaScript, and the JavaScript's been validated on the UI before it submits it to our backend, and that's cool in a way because we've got backend validation on the API gate, on the API input. That's cool. But what happens when you're trying to retrieve data with validation errors on it? And I'm just trying to find a good standard for returning validation messages with an object, and no one seems to have an answer. As though we've been shopping and I've been frustrated as fuck. I've literally spent 2 hours now, and I mean I've spent more than 2 hours on this. I've spent a significant amount of time trying to get my fucking unit test project to run against the project, my actual code project. So I have a web API, MVC web API, that I can hit through the web front end, happy birthday, yeah, great. If I reference it with a unit from a unit test, so I can unit test it, it's fine, build's fine, absolutely fine, all the packages, everything's great until you run it. And then as soon as you run it, it goes, cannot find this, type not found exception, fucking assembly not found exception. It fucks me off so much. Legitimately pissed off at the amount of fucking time I seem to spend pissing around with NuGet packages. From what I can tell, there's a NuGet package mismatch between, and it says it can't, there's a type exception when constructing the controller. But it's a project reference. It's a fucking project reference. It should just be able to do it. And I don't remember this being so difficult. I don't remember this being such a pain in the arse. I generally I don't know what's changed, but something fucking has, and it's a pain in the arse. It's doing my bloody head in, as you can probably tell. I literally just seem to spend, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just fucking uninstall all the NuGet packages, add them in one by one, try and go through each one in particular and make sure you've got the right number in and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, why is it that they can't just figure that out? I seem to remember NuGet packages never doing this. I seem to remember them just working, and something has changed. And normally, right, you could accuse me of using .NET Core and being in a couple of previews ahead and being on the cutting edge. I'm literally in a full-fat .NET Framework project, referencing another full-fat .NET Framework project. Ironically, I've got a .NET Standard project that's been referenced by a .NET Core project. What's the fucking makes me so mad? I'm so angry about it. It's pissed me right off. It's just going so, everything's just going so slowly. I don't have time. I need to just get something to doing it. I seem to be spending so much time on tiny little pathetic things that don't fucking matter. All I'm trying to do is fucking unit test a controller. You know what I mean? I just don't even need to do that. It's a controller. It doesn't do anything at the moment. In other news as well, while Service Fabric looks like it'll be good for my platform in general, it won't actually be good for the scaling up of stuff when I'm doing testing, because of the amount of time it takes to scale up a VM for Service Fabric, unless you just have a load of VMs in the Service Fabric cluster that are inactive, which is not cost effective. So there's that too. So I need to figure out what I'm doing. I just need time. I don't have it. I have 2 hours of it and I don't get any. I'm literally where I was before I started. I basically could have gone to bed at 10 and it would have been fine. I've been in the exact same position. Azure Container Service seems to give me what I want for my testing area, where I can rapidly increase the number of containers and stuff. You can slowly increase VMs, but I can rapidly increase the number of Docker things, so that's alright. Basically you just have meaty machines sat awaiting, or something like that. That sounds like a good plan. It sounds like it's got what I need it to have. Question is then, does that mean Service Fabric makes sense for the rest of the platform? Because performance actually isn't an issue for the rest of the platform. I'm just waking up, if you can't tell. Okay, so, plan of attack, ladies and gentlemen. Use Service Fabric for the majority of my all of my microservices, which is good, because that means I can run lower power servers on my service cluster, because I don't have to have spare powerful ones left over for all the compute power, because that's now going to be done in container services, which is essentially a Docker swarm. So I can have meaty VMs sat in there, ready to spin up, and then basically deploy Docker containers to it. The concept I had of controlling the number of instances in my Service Fabric cluster now moves from the Service Fabric cluster into the service, into the container service, and that is literally pre-built in there, so that's kind of a more natural fit. I was kind of essentially bastardizing Service Fabric in order to manually scale, which they genuinely suggest you shouldn't do. Also, the alarm's not on, happy days. Instead, moving the dynamic programmatically generated scaling into something that's designed to do that, which would be a good idea. So, low power Service Fabric cluster to run the main web page and the main services, and then all of the compute power is generated within service container clusters. Can be scaled dynamically as you need. Okay, that makes sense. The other problem is how long things are taking, and how, yeah, you know. Okay, right, I've solved the minor blip I had where I started to think that what I was doing was wrong, but what I haven't solved is the amount of little progress I've made over the past year. Basically, catastrophically, I've started to doubt whether or not I can actually pull this off. And that is that's a way more important problem than the Service Fabric stuff. Hey, they've also finished off all of this. Oh. Come for a quick walk around at lunchtime. I've already had my lunch, just had a walk around, try and cool my head down a little bit. Figuratively, obviously, because it's roasted. I get quite stressed. I feel stressed out. I just need to chill. Stop beating myself up. It's one of them things where, like, I could do with a break, and then having a break kind of worsens the scenario. I'm supposed to be going to a meetup today, and I'm trying to figure out whether I'm in the mood or not. I feel like I need to, I don't know what I need, but I feel like I need something. And I'm not sure that's this. I had to race up to the next stop so I can get my bus. So, the will of the gods are against me either way. I decided not to go to that meetup thing. It wasn't on a topic that I was amazingly interested in, because it was on naming things. Genuinely. I wanted to go because it was the first time that they've hosted the meetup things on a Tuesday. I can't do Mondays. But I was just in such a foul mood, and I've been really stressed today, so I bottled out of it. I remember the last time I forced myself to go and I didn't want to go, and I really didn't like it, and I came back and was like so frustrated, and I basically didn't want that to happen again. So instead I came home, I chilled out, I played some Xbox, I cooked some dinner with Laura. Actually, Laura was going to have salmon and stuff on her own, and we had salmon, well, she had salmon and sweet potatoes and roast veg. I had salmon, roast veg and rice with soy sauce. It was lovely. Not normally a salmon fan, which is why she has salmon when I'm not around. Yeah, otherwise, we've had a relatively productive evening. I managed to fix the issue that I had last night, which turns out, I believe, and I don't know for certain because I literally deleted everything and started again, I think a project I had which was called like project name.tests, obviously it's like company name, product name, etc. Was in a folder called project name, and it was trying to reference another project called project name, and it was looking in its own folder when it should have been looking in another folder, and I think that's basically what caused it. And I didn't notice that until I was just like, fuck it, let's delete the entire project, copy and paste all the code out, delete it, run it again, happy day. That was a pain in the arse, but I got it sorted. I'm now currently building up the validation and whatnot for the registering malarkey. I'm going to continue the way I am. I think I've designed a relatively quick, fast, easy to develop, but yet still quite, it's a very thin thread that essentially, like, as you enter the platform, here's how it will work. My initial game is to basically just make sure that you can log in, make sure that you can hook up a repository, and then it'll clone it and then save it in a database. That is my aim of the game, but between me and that I've got some service bus stuff to implement, I've got some stuff all over the place. It's going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to that, to make a bit of progress. And that is always a good thing. Feeling much less stressed about this stuff. I think I don't know what hit me, I just had a really bad, I think the problem was I had a really frustrating night where I spent 2 hours, made no progress, and then I applied that to the rest of my life. And for a while I felt like, well, until very recently actually, when I've started to kind of shift the way the project's running and then run it in a different way, I've started to feel like I was kind of running on the spot. I'm running really fast, I'm trying my damned hardest and I'm not getting anywhere. And I'm now kind of like trying to shift a little bit, so I'm more like skimming the mountain rather than trying to hit it straight ahead. And it's gonna work, it'll work out. Yes, I'm just doing public web at the moment, which literally just has a register page on it. Anything which I consider to be like user experience isn't important, i.e. the validation is only important to the point where I can debug it and I can see it and I don't have anything in an invalid state. Although obviously invalid state doesn't necessarily matter because there's only one account at the moment, it's mine. So, but saying that, I still want to prove the concept of having this service talking to this service, talking to this service. So for example, I'm going to have my presentation web service, which is talking to my security service, which will then figure out a way of getting an email out. I'm probably going to have, I don't know whether to have a communication service or not, I feel like it's a bit overkill, but we'll find out. There needs to be some kind of output, whether or not that's, I guess it probably is I'm probably going to have like, yeah, communication service, but while it can send emails, what its main purpose is like to present a webhook. Eventually anyway, that's going to be way more useful than emails. But I need emails to do my authentication and stuff. So yeah, that will then talk to that, and then that will go through, and then you can log in, and then you can hook up a code repository to the code repository, and then I can prove, well, I know I can do it, but I can prove the way that I'm going to be generating all the code on the fly, because it's going to be generated each time, rather than the way that I used to do it, which was copy it around. The problem with copying it around is that's difficult to do on 1001 Docker swarm container jobbers. It's very wet. I've been waiting for the bus to arrive. I'm on my way. Making good progress at work over the past couple of days. You can see from like the burn down that the first 2 weeks of this sprint, basically nothing changed. Nothing went down. It went up a little bit, then went down a little bit, but basically net loss, zero. That's because of the infrastructure issues and because of issues trying to get things signed off. And then literally like over the past 2 or 3 days it's just dropped off a cliff. Like the chart is just south and it's catching up with the like ideal trend line. We could in theory catch it. The problem is the next page is a little bit more complicated, and we are dropping one story because of the issues we were having. But yeah, we've basically almost finished the last story we want to do. We've just kind of got a bottleneck now at the UI level. We've got some JavaScript issues, and I kind of feel bad because it's the UI guy. He's kind of been twiddling his thumbs while the back end's been on fire, and now we're like, yo dude, come on, it's not working, bro. To be honest, I kind of feel sorry for UI developers in general. When we had our old UI guy, like all of the bugs would essentially be his. Like every single bug that was ever raised was always visual, or from the JavaScript. The back end, not necessarily because there aren't bugs, although there aren't, it's just much harder to spot bugs and issues in the back end because you have to essentially try and force a state on the data, and then to force that state what you essentially have to do is circumnavigate the JavaScript. So it's still a JavaScript issue, but we fix it as well. But you know what I mean? Like, basically everything gets spotted because of a JavaScript issue, not... Anyway, I'm not a fan of JavaScript, but it's something I'm trying to pick up and I'm trying to learn. I'm looking at doing some stuff for my registration page for like password strength stuff. Literally announced today, just as I need them. I'm not even shitting you, that literally got released today. It's in preview, it's on Azure now, and it's like, it's literally made for me. It is exactly what I want. But basically on Monday I was talking about how I don't think my stack is going to be working right. Hosting the nodes within Service Fabric is too heavy. I don't need that kind of support for all of the different worker slaves, basically. What I was looking at was service container service something, fabric infrastructure, something like that, which basically meant that I had a cluster of VMs which I could dynamically install a load of containers on and whatnot, which is alright, it works, but it means I've got to constantly have VMs running, which is obviously expensive. However, if I can literally just literally spin up a container as and when I require and then shut it down immediately, that is perfect. Absolutely fucking perfect. It's like, if I uploaded this video before today, I would have thought someone from Microsoft was like, I got you fam. It's fucking dope. It's literally exactly what I need. So basically, I fill up a queue. If y'all roughly remember my architecture diagram, which I'm not sure I showed you entirely, I had the idea of this slave driver which would be able to drive all of these. Now what I was going to do was essentially have this in a VM set, which I could then spin up more VMs, and this would have to be in control of how many VMs it had, how many containers were on all of the VMs. This would have to sit outside of my Service Fabric cluster. Now, this comes into the Service Fabric cluster, and this literally becomes the drawing that it is, and that is legitimately just Docker containers which I can spin up virtually instantaneously as and when required. I can request CPU power, I can request memory, and that, my friend, is fucking dope. I can't remember. I cannot wait, sorry. I can definitely remember. Laura's gone to netball and I'm gonna do some programming. I'm up a little late. We go to bed early on a Wednesday because it's like the middle of the week and Laura's out, so I get lots of programming time during the day. But I've been up because I've been excited. I've been excitedly playing around with things. I've got my view model all nice and validated properly. Instead of using Fluent validations, I've decided to go with like basic Fluent, basic like the actual data model thing. So it's on the view model, that way it's getting actually displayed onto the UI, which is very nice. All about that. But also, that's something which we could probably use at work as well, to be fair. I'm probably still going to end up using Fluent validation like on the API at the thingy level, but I'm just trying to make it like acceptable experience at the front. Like by acceptable I mean it's shit awful. But yeah, at the moment like I just want to validate my view model as it comes in, map it, fire it off to the API, gets revalidated there, but there's like basic validation, serious validation, you know. So that's good fun. Yeah, I've been doing that, and I've also been just kind of like cleaning around and like getting stuff integrated. I realised that my I've set up like Google what's it called, reCAPTCHA, where it like figures out whether or not you're a robot. I've got that all integrated in as well, so that's good, because essentially this is going to be like my sign up page, and on the public web I don't want bots to just like hammer it. It also occurred to me, I think I mentioned yesterday how I have like my different microservices all sitting in Service Fabric. I mentioned it at some point, and I mentioned a communication service to send emails. Azure Functions, boy! I'm thinking instead, for now, because I don't need anything fancy, set up an Azure Functions thing that just listens to a queue, and every time it gets a message it just fires something off and creates an email for me. That's what I'm looking forward to there. Because looking, life is too short. I haven't got time to make a communication service. Well, I do, but it's not important. And I could just whip one of them up in Azure Functions, and to be honest with you, it'll be fucking functional for a bloody long time. The only email I'm going to send is one to set up an account, so it's got an authentication token in it, and Jesus. Anyway, and they'll still need like a centralised place to create the message that I'm being sent, but it'll be ridiculous, you know what I mean, it'll be fine. We're trying to be pragmatic, we're trying to be quick, we're trying to be agile, it'll do the job for now, it works functionally for now, we can improve it in the future. When we start sending other types of email, we'll have an actual email service that's like able to do proper views. Until then, it's plain text. As if this video has probably just gone, literally just gone, one day too far. Obviously a little bit excited last night, and I was reading up on how to send emails via Azure functions, and I got completely distracted and didn't check how long the video was, so I didn't end it last night, so therefore we're in for another day. We're spending my day pair programming today as we are trying to basically fix the mess that has become our front end. It's not done very well. Basically we spent so long like building the background plumbing that the business just needed to see a page, and then we built it on like a shaky ground and then carried on building on top of it. So we're kind of like reapproaching that. We made the mistake of reusing view models across different pages, which meant that Automapper would struggle to figure out what it was supposed to do because we'd need different stuff happening on different pages but with the same models. The problem there is either with Automapper, I'm not a massive fan of Automapper to be honest with you, or with the fact that we have different view, because essentially what we'd do is we'd have a different view model class but it'd have the same properties on it. For different pages. So in theory you could just do that with a normal mapper. But yeah, I was getting confused. Automapper then obviously relies on the basic and whatever. So it was a problem with one of the two things, and we've gone with the view model, which makes sense to be fair. There's no reason why a page should have information that it doesn't need to say. Yeah, we've changed our backend to use patches now instead of put and posts. Put and post, I mean put, obviously. We are basically swarming that task, and that's the plan of attack. And we made some good progress. I was pairing up today, sorting that out, probably make more progress. We're trying to like share knowledge of how to do stuff a bit better so that we don't get in this state again, basically. So I'm kind of helping out on the front end stuff, which is things that I don't normally touch, but I do back end stuff, and back-endy mappings are usually a little bit more complicated, but actually there's some quite tasty mappings as we're pulling information from like 2 different areas on the API and all that. It's a bit of a pain. We have most of the gets sorted, we just need to hook up the posts, because they're not posts anymore, they're patches. We've migrated to using patches instead of posts and puts and what have you, because it simplifies. Basically it means that anyone that uses our API can just patch their stuff whenever they want, rather than like having to do certain things at certain points. It's a bit more flexible for the people, but also it makes it easier to keep track of, if you're on a journey, keep track of what you're editing and what you're deleting and all that stuff, so you don't have one page wiping the next bit, which is the problem we got into. Like we have 3 pages that kind of interact with the same thing. The first page doesn't know anything about the next page, let alone the third page. So when you got to that page and saved it, it would just wipe it, just blatted out the object, so we were using puts, which wasn't good. There were other ways to manage it, but we decided to go with the patches instead. I'm mildly concerned about the fact that we're not going to be able to use Swagger as well anymore, because, because the way we were using Swagger to generate our APIs and automatically generate clients, we may not be able to go down that route. We might have to build our own client, which probably makes the API a little bit less easy to use for an external person, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, otherwise it's been a pretty productive day at work. I've just kind of been taking the evening off. To be honest, I normally take Wednesdays off, but I'm taking Thursday off. I need to go to bed. I need to end this video. It's Friday tomorrow. Yeah, I haven't done anything per se on stuff. I've got a really bad sweet tooth. I just want chocolate. And should we crack open? We've got some mini eggs here that we got at Easter. They're not cracked open yet. I see them every day. They're eyeballing. Thanks for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. I apologise for extending it one day further than it should be and rambling on a little bit and kind of having a bit of a roller coaster of a day, but of a couple of days, because of the downs of the first couple of days and the ups of the last excitement of stuff that I'm doing. I've now got to just start building the infrastructure out for my identity manager service jobber, because I need to create an account, fire up an email, going to use your services functions. It's going to be great. So excited. I'll catch you later.